Hello, and welcome to this Laker lesson, part of our Research into Action series, a series where we bring you the most up-to-date, high-quality research so that you don't have to go find it on your own. I'm Vanessa Kiesler. I'm an education research consultant, and I'm working with the Grand Valley Charter Schools office to bring you this series. And today we're going to be talking about instructional time. Before we get going, I like to start each of these by reminding us of a few things about research. 1, research varies in quality. You'll hear people say, oh, I looked at the research, or oh, we should look at the research on that. But some research is really good and some isn't so good. It's not done well, it doesn't use good methods, it doesn't draw appropriate conclusions. And the other thing, a lot of research is only built to show associations, how two things are related to each other. They're not built to show cause and effect. And that's fine, not all research can show cause and effect. But sometimes you hear people saying, well, if we implement this program, it will cause this to happen and we know it. And the research might not have been set up to determine that. So just being careful to know if it's causal research or not. And finally, research is science, so it's always evolving. So today I might share some research with you, and then time will go on, people will study the topic more, and our understandings and our learnings may change. And that's a good thing because we're doing science. It also means we have to stay up to date on what the latest thinking is on different topics. All that to say, this is why we do the Research into Action series, so that you don't have to try to go through the research and figure out what's quality, what kind of research is this, what's the latest. It's all here for you at your fingertips. You can watch the videos and have it available. So I'm glad you took a minute out of your day today to watch this, and hopefully you'll find it useful. And remember that Grand Valley makes good research available to you as well. So the Grand Valley Charter School office does research, and you can find it at gvsu.edu/CSO/research. Keep your eyes peeled there for studies or other things they're producing, and it's another resource that you have that brings research to your virtual doorstep. So what are you going to learn today? We are going to be talking about what research says about the best ways to structure your time for learning. And today, one of the key resources I used is this Instructional Time in U.S. Public Schools, Wide Variation, Causal Effects, and Lost Hours. And again, this is my favorite type of study. It's more of a meta-analysis where it pulls together findings from a number of studies and synthesizes them and actually looks at how the effects are different or the same across different studies. So we're relying a lot on this one. Okay, what does the research say about instructional time? I think this is the question that everybody seems to be asking, right? Like, do we need more instructional time? Do we need more days, more hours, more? In general, the research says there are times and ways in which adding more time can be effective, but it has to be paired with instructional quality and individualized instruction. So it's not just a more is better sort of thing. A lot of the research on time, where time has been added, also other things were involved. Lower student-teacher ratios, data-driven instruction, frequent teacher observations and feedback, and health intervention. And all of those have positive relationships with increased student outcomes. So again, it wasn't just more time, it was more time, smaller classes, data-driven instruction, frequent observations, and focusing on student health, for example. The research does show that if you are going to add time, it's better to add time to the year than to the day. But again, the quality and the nature of that time matters. Another thing that comes up a lot is, what about changing the way time is structured? So year-round calendars, block schedules, 4-day weeks, school start times. These are all constant things that are churning. People are saying they're good, they're bad. Here's what the research is showing, at least the high-quality research I'm referencing right now. There is little causal evidence on year-round calendars and block schedules. So while people have studied how people have implemented year-round schedules, year-round calendars, block schedules, there's little that's set up where you can say, if you do a year-round calendar, we can prove it causes these kind of outcomes. We can prove block schedules causes these kind of outcomes. That's not to say that people haven't had positive experiences or negative experiences with those things, just that the evidence base doesn't prove that they're good. It doesn't prove anything because it's not there. 4-day weeks have been studied more in a causal framework. 4-day weeks rarely improve student academic outcomes and often lead to decreases in performance. And I'm going to talk more about that on the next slide. So that one has been studied in a causal way and is not a great approach in terms of student outcomes. And then school start times has also been studied. It can improve outcomes, but it does not always do so. So here's my takeaway. This is Vanessa's personal summary. You don't necessarily need to fuss with all of this, or you can if it works for some reason in your culture. Minus 4-day work weeks, that's definitely negative. But the other 3, you can, you don't have to, but people tend to think this is the solution to the problem, and it's probably not. It's probably just part of how you offer school to your students, and that probably has more to do with your community, your buy-in, different factors. But I did want to return and talk about the 4-day school week, 4-day work week. This has been a popular topic. So here's what the research showed, just digging in a little bit more. When schools went to 4-day weeks that maintained the same total number of hours in a school year, so the day was longer, but there was, less days in a week, the effects were mixed. So in Colorado, the 4-day week in rural small districts led to a small increase in math and reading test scores for upper elementary students. In Oklahoma, they didn't see an impact on academic achievement, but they found that the shortened school day saved money. That is a reason for this, that people have been interested in it. And it decreased bullying and fights among the student body. So there were some, academically maybe not, but there were some other positive outcomes. But again, that's where it's 4 days, but it's the same number of hours, so longer days, 1 day less. But in other states, districts have shifted to a 4-day school week and reduced the number of hours in a school year, and those programs have been almost uniformly negative. So studies showing declines in math and reading test scores in a number of different contexts. I wanted to dig in on the 4-day work week a little, or 4-day school week, work week, because it is a popular suggestion right now coming out of the heavy pandemic, more virtual environment. Like, people are talking about this a lot, so just wanted to say this is where the research is. What does seem to matter a ton more than, how you structure your time is the quality of that time. And so there's 2 things in the literature that rose to the top for me to bring forward to you. How the school day is structured to preserve instructional time and reduce disruptions, and the quality of instructional practices used by teachers. So I'm going to talk about both of those. Disruptions matter. And if you've been watching Research into Action, other ones, we have talked about disruptions a number of times. They're bad for school climate, they're bad for staff retention, and they're bad for student achievement. So the authors of that paper here that I'm talking about, they did a study and they looked at where the time goes. So there's 3 big places that time gets lost to. One is unexcused student absences, one is outside interruptions, and one is teacher absences. And in this one Rhode Island case study, the total instructional time lost to high school students due to these 3 factors was 258 hours, almost 45 days of school. Obviously, when you look at those 3, unexcused student absences is something that's a lot harder for schools to control. And I think given mental health concerns, the pandemic, life, students maybe aren't going to be in school in the same way that they were. There's good reason for that. That might be a whole different topic to talk about. But within the control of schools are those outside interruptions. How many times a day is a teacher interrupted when he or she is trying to teach? And possibly teacher absences. So let's dig in on those. Reducing disruptions. And this was talked about in Research into Action Pandemic Recovery and Research into Action School Climate and Staff Retention. So this is a repeat, but at least I'm staying on message. Small changes to logistics that minimize class instructional time could have a big impact. So the suggestion that we've been making through these Research into Action is asking teachers to identify and track interruptions in their day, or figure out a way to collect data on what the interruptions are that are happening. And then have teacher planning sessions to brainstorm ways to limit those interruptions or structure them differently, co-create that plan with teachers and implement it. So as an example, instead of announcements at random times, there's only announcements at 1 time a day. Limited use of the intercom, reducing classroom visits, reducing calls to classroom phones. There could be a whole number of other things, but spending time as a school community saying, what is impeding you from teaching during your day, and can we make a routine, make a change that would make your day easier so you can focus more on instruction and less on all these disruptions. And this is also something that came out of the GVSU School Operations Survey. Teachers were talking about this in that survey as well as in the research base. So this is a big piece and something that you as a school leader, if you're a school leader watching this, or even if you're a teacher, this is something that we can do. Finally, I wanted to talk about evidence-based teaching practice, which again could be we could do many research into actions about evidence-based teaching practices. But here's what was really interesting as I reviewed the research for this talk. While there's a lot more detail on each of these steps or specific content, pedagogy, the idea is that there's about 10 principles of instruction, and that these are the research-based strategies that all teachers should know. There is a great deal of agreement on this. This is the fairly agreed upon foundation of like the core good quality instructional practices, the building blocks of high quality instructions. So I'll just read what's on the slide just in case you are having trouble reading it, or just to expand on it a little. Beginning lessons with short reviews of previous learning, so activating prior learning. Presenting new material in small amounts, assisting students as they practice this material. Ask many questions and observe student responses. Questions allow students to connect new material with prior learning. Provide models such as step-by-step demonstrations or think alouds to work out the problem. Guide student practice by asking good questions and providing feedback. Check that students understand the material. Doing so can help students learn with fewer errors. Obtain a high success rate through teaching in small steps, guiding practice, and employing mastery learning techniques. Provide scaffolds or temporary supports for difficult material. Prepare students for and monitor independent practice. Ample independent practice is necessary for skills and knowledge to become automatic. Engage students in weekly and monthly reviews of past material. So when you read those, I'm struck by the fact that they are very simple and also very complex all at once, right? This is the core of good teaching. Activate prior learning, break the material down, teach it, check for understanding, give students time for practice, and help them look back. It sounds simple when you say it like that, but this is actually the hardest work we're doing in our schools. Some of the hardest work we're doing in our schools. This teacher engaging with the student around content, that's really hard. And going back to the slide before, these disruptions, every time a teacher is taken away from doing these 10 practices, that's less time spent with the high quality instruction. That's less time the student is spending with that material in the presence of high quality instruction. So what do we do? Before we talk about what we do, I want to make this note. Standardized tests came up a lot as I went through the research. And I just want to be someone who says to all of you, if you're a school leader, if you're a teacher, if you focus on your high quality instruction practices, if you try to reduce stress for yourself and your students about testing, if you give increasingly meaningful opportunities, test scores will follow. So please stop teaching to the test. Please stop stressing out about the test. Please stop. The test is going to happen. Some of you may be like, wait a minute, didn't you? Yes, I used to run the assessment program for the Michigan Department of Education. So believe me when I tell you, I understand assessment, and I also understand that it is not the point. And policymakers have made it too much the point over the last couple decades. But for you as a leader and you as a teacher, your high quality instruction, building those school days and school opportunities so kids can learn material, focus on that, and the test will follow, or it won't. Don't let it drive your practice, please. They are important measures, but they're only one measure. And again, if you were really doing all of those, I'm gonna go back to this. If every teacher in your school was doing all 10 of these steps with great reliability, great fidelity, your test scores would be just fine. So here's a few practical suggestions. So I think for me, as I reviewed the research, there is no magic time solution. It's not like if we just did this one thing, everything would be fine. No, there is no magic solution about instructional time. So resist policy and policymakers who say there is. People love a silver bullet. They love it to be easy. It just is. Education is not like that. And this is another place where it's not like if we just started the day earlier, everything would be better. Not necessarily. The second point I cannot underscore enough. More time doing the same things won't necessarily change outcomes. That's my biggest concern when I hear people right now talk about, oh, we should really have, kids have to catch up from the pandemic. We should have longer school years and longer school days. And I think not without changes in what they're doing. If kids aren't engaged right now, if kids aren't having access to those high quality instructional practices, if kids aren't learning or learning to love learning, more of that isn't going to change anything besides tire everybody out. So don't just think more time is better. It's not more time on its own. It's more time doing the right things, or maybe less time, but more of the right things. Conduct that disruption audit and try to reduce those outside interruptions. I didn't talk a lot about teacher absences here because I think that's there's another research based on that we might want to look at, but do take a look at that. Do you have high teacher absenteeism? Do you know why? Is it related to possibly teacher dissatisfaction or other issues? Maybe ask your teachers for suggestions. And if you think there's something going on around teacher absences that you could do by changing a structural problem, then do it. But also sometimes teachers need to be absent because teachers are people too, and people need time away from work. And then back to basics. You can go back to those core instructional practices and make sure every teacher knows them, uses them, make sure your new teachers know them. Don't assume that they were taught this clearly in their pre-service programs. Good core instruction is good core instruction. So make sure that's there and then keep building from that point. And I already mentioned this was the main resource I used, which referenced lots of other studies. If you wanted to look it up yourself, there's the link. And thank you for participating.